Good morning from down under. We're going to do talking about covers. Now, covers are really important for journals. I'm going to do a craft along with covers. Now, I did this journal a while back. It's got 140 pages, I think. I can't even remember the name of it, but it's Country Life anyway. As you can see, it's got laces and tucks and different styles of pockets and whatnot. I just completed the Mother's Day journal last week. Now this cover is a Nick Booksmith cover. It's a hard cover. Basically, this is when I'm doing my giant journals. This journal's probably, I reckon it's about 480. As you can see, it's full of pages. So, I'm working on, at the moment, Paper Life by Len. I'm working on her beach journal. And as you can see, this is a beautiful, beautiful journal. So what I'm going to be doing is discussing journals and the basic structure of a soft cover. Eventually I'll get round to explaining more of what I know on hard covers. But these covers are ideal. They're actually quite heavy. This one, it's about 160 pages. It measures 6 across by 8.5 down. So what I try to do, a lot of you know your papers either come in letter size A4, which for us that means they are 11.5 by, let me see, 8.25. So they're our page size. And normally when I do a journal, I retain that size, even when I'm doing digitals. Because what I find, most digital designers will, once you've folded your journal in half, well, here's the last one I did. This is Sherry's one. Once you find you've folded all your pages in half and redecorated your pages, you find that the pages will actually sit nicely in your journal. If your printer prints out by 8.5 by 10.5, most printers will print digitals by that size. You can actually resize journals. I'm not saying you can't. I have got all different sizes in journals. That's why I tend to go for soft cover more than anything. Now, because the DigiCat spits out at that size I stated, it actually sits nicely in my journal. And you can still see the highlight of the T. Now, I always try my best to do the journals this way. The same with Paper Life by Lens. Hers is nearly finished. Now, you'll find I can cut to suit the page, but technically that's how they'll sit in. And this is a no sewing journal too, because I want to do a no journal technique. So the same, this is cut at 8.5 by 10. I cut it in half, and as you know, I normally zigzag around my journals. I'm not going to show you a flip through yet of this. This is nearly complete, but basically I'm going to show you how I start my covers. Now, before I make a cover, I pull out my tea and coffee dyed pages, obviously, and some other pages. There possibly will be more in this journal that I'm doing next, because it's going to be Paris. I sometimes use scrapbooking paper, and because I want to keep the same paper for the inside of it, I will make my pockets that will need to be sewn in. As you guessed, the theme will be Paris, and it's by Kelly's Craft. I'm doing that as a designer team project for her. Now, these are your best friend to do a journal, especially for a soft cover. They will not deteriorate. They last the test of time. I don't know how they're made, but I know they're pretty good. They also got a ready-made spine for you. So in that spine, you can actually fit 3 signatures, 6 pages each, if you really wanted to. Then there's the other size folder, which is this one, and this one can definitely fit 3 or 4 signatures. I've been doing my journals, 1 signature journal for a little bit, quite some time really. What I like about these two, they're already sealed on the bottom. Let's show you in the camera. See, that's already a seal there. So these are very sturdy. You will find them most times at your local thrift store. You don't want to be buying them new, because I think they're quite expensive. But I paid $2 for a bunch of these yesterday. So how do I judge my cover? Now, because I'm going to be doing this in different stages, and I might even change my mind on the cover, because I have not seen the DigiKit I'm working on. I will always, these pages are incorrectly, so I'll pull them out. As you can see, that will fit in nicely. That hasn't been trimmed off yet, so I'll pull that out. I like leaving 1/8 of an inch there, and there, and there, yeah, 1/8 of an inch. I don't leave more. The reason behind that, I like the look of them, number one. They look cool. They look really good journals. And you don't have to worry either about, if you're putting lace in, you don't have to worry about trimming the inner pages. Because if I was to leave this without lace, you would see that I've got my pages a little bit taller towards the middle. Now generally what I would do is trim 1/8 of an inch off that, or 1/3 of an inch, whichever way you look at it. But you normally will get a straight page like you actually do. This journal, they're all straight, if you can see that. They're all straight, none are sticking out in the middle. Now, so how I start them is, my papers are ready to go. So it's picking fabric. Now fabric is hard to pick, especially as you don't know what the subject is. So what I actually do with mine, like I said, this I'll complete at a later update. I'll be doing part 2. I haven't gotten the journal I am going to be doing. I always glue the inside. Now, your glue stick is your best friend. Just remember, this iron is your best friend. So just make sure that's hot, because it's one of those ones that beeps at you. And oh my, it's so noisy at times when it beeps at you. So this paper has been cut to size, and I've left 1/8 of an inch each way. So I really glue it up because I intend to sew around it. So I'm going to choose black for the inside, because I know the journal I'm doing has got some form of black. And I smooth it out. This is where your iron is your best friend. See how it just irons on. Now, normally I would use a knife to cut this, but I'll just use a scissors for this movie, for this video, sorry. Now I'm getting confused. And I cut it as closely as possible. So that's the inside of my cover. And as you can see, I'm not even trimming neatly, because I'm going to attack it with the craft knife later. You can use your, if anyone's done patchwork, they'll know what I mean, one of those rolling wheels, whatever they call them. So I'm just trimming this off. Now, if you weren't confident, right, in, say, putting the next layer on top, I would sew the black in first, because then that would give you the chance to trim. So I can actually go around and trim now, but I'd rather do that with the craft knife. Now then, it's a matter of what choice I want my front cover to be. Now I can choose it to be this, which has sort of grabbed my eye for the journal I'm thinking of. And again, I'll use the same procedure. I will ink it with this. So at this stage, I'm going to stop it, because I really would like to get the roller and cut that off properly for this journal. So if you're not confident, I would get your sewing machine, and you sew right on the very edge a straight line on along there, and you do it slow. The slower you do it, the better your stitching will appear. And if you do it on that edge, it even makes it that much easier to trim this excess. When you've done that, then you go to phase 2. But we're not going to that at this stage. I wanted to talk more about limited supplies techniques and all sorts of things you can use. Now, music paper is your best friend. Thrift stores are your best friend. I always get my fabrics mainly from a fabric store, but I have picked up some vintage pieces along the way from the thrift stores, because I like to get a lot of lace. It's very expensive to buy lace here. So So what I do, I don't do all my journals in them, only some. Because what I do is I buy tops at $2 and I basically go by them. You know what I mean? Use them a lot. I do a lot of layering. And I guess with the Paris theme one, I'm going to have to definitely use lace, because this is what this cover is going to be for. That will be released at some stage in the next couple of days by Kelly's Crafts. So I really wanted to show you the first process of what I actually do. Now, as you have noticed, I have not printed out my kit because I don't work that way. I would normally do my pages, then I do my covers first. I ask what colour it's going to be, you know, what colours are in the kit, and I try to judge my colours from that. I do a lot of sewing. With Lynn's journal, like I said, I did no sewing. I wanted to see if it took just as much time to complete a journal, which it does, and it's come out really neat. I really love it. It's got lace in it. Just got beautiful vibrancy, and I've tried to retain the colours. That's the colour palette of what she used. So that's how I choose my fabric, is by the colour palette. Then I normally choose an image from a digital kit, like I did with Sherry's not children's, that was a hardcover journal. But this one, well, it is the children's journal actually. I've just figured what it's actually called. Now, as you would have seen this in my video, there's a lot of sewing. And look, I leave the tails hanging because I love the scruffiness of a journal. This is pretty well laced up. Lynn's is too. My Mother's Day journal is too. So, yeah, and with journals, like, I look at it, how do I want it to actually look? So if you look at this one, in this one, I did a material pocket and frayed. You know, fraying is good. It looks really good in your projects. Look at that, that is frayed. That is frayed sari. And I sew around it, again, using my glue stick. So, the only way I can show you step by step how to do that cover is to actually sew one end, come back in and do part two. Gee, I've been talking for 18 minutes. Sorry guys, I didn't realise the time had gone so fast. This journal was really good to do. I got a lot out of it. I think this one's by Nevermore Creations. And as you can see, I've really laced up my pockets and really sewn around them and frayed around them. So there's laces, and again there's lace backgrounds and sari, and again threads pulled out of it just to make it look more vintage. I'm a vintage girl, so I tend to do a lot of vintage journals. So you can see it again, I've done it there. I just frayed and used some different type of thread at the end of my journal. I actually love this journal. The only reason why I love it so much is the cover worked in so well with this one. I think it's called Country Life by Lindsay from Nevermore Creations. And honestly, it gave me lots of ideas. It expanded my growth in journal making, so I learnt a lot. My preferences are hardcovers, but when you're doing hardcovers, it's, I don't know, you can't decorate every page because it won't work that way for you. Like, you'll have quite a few blank pages, so it's up to you what you actually do to these blank pages. I make sure I choose papers that have got some form of little marks on them, which, should we show me the technique for that? I make sure, do you know what I mean? They've got gold in them. There's a lot of gold flecks. I don't think you can see it. I just hate that word. This is supposed to go over the page. But in this journal, there's lots of techniques just with making my papers. Like, that is super gold. I don't know if you can see it. Look, I don't know if I've been boring or what, but I'm hoping this made a little sense. Again, I leave a lot of free pages in between my digitals. And again, I use the full page. Now, I have made smaller journals. So, in that regard, I can show you a technique to make a smaller journal in the fabrics or in textiles, whichever you want to use. And that way you'd get more experience with doing one signatures. Look, honestly, one signatures I love because you can make them look really vintagey. Then you go to this book I really love, but this is a book that you would make for someone that's collecting. Most times they might want to write memories in them, you know, of all the good things that have happened in their life and whatnot, because that is what it's made for, a lot of room to write in. Where the one signature, you can fill it up to your heart's content, and it does make a beautiful journal. No, this is full. Absolutely full. All I'm waiting on is some inks from my printer so I can actually go ahead and do more work to this, more justice to this journal. But unfortunately I ran out of ink. So, part one, you've learnt to make the inside of your cover. If you want to make a pocket, and I'm going to make a pocket, I'll actually show you another little technique before I forget. I would then glue there, glue there, glue there, glue there, in there. I nearly forgot about that technique, and it's best to know it. So ideally, I would double fold my fabric. And I will use my trusty iron. Now you're going to say, this is going to flop up. Well, yeah, it will. But this is what I do here now. I will again glue across, glue there, glue there. You remember I'm used to doing this, so this is the way I've always done mine. So now I've made, I just want to make sure it's straight. Like it's easy to straighten. Iron. So again, now if you're making pockets, I would definitely sew along your edges of the inside of the cover. But you're thinking, why isn't she cutting at the thing? Well, I'm not, but I can fold it and actually make life easier and cut this way. And again, cut this way. And then I'll neaten it up with my little tool. So there's your cover with the insides. And that will loosen up as soon as I've run an iron through it later. It will give me lots of room for pocket. Now also what I normally do with these, now come to think of it, what was that? It was on my mind and now I've lost it. Because you sewed around the inside, what we haven't considered is what do we want as our closure. Well, I love ribbon on my signature journals and I like the Zari silk. I will attach it to the back of the cover. Then I'll put the next one on. But like I said, if you don't sew the inside of this, especially first time doing it, you will come across issues where this might slip off or whatever it may be. But thanks for watching, and I will do part 2 and you'll hear me yabbering a lot. Thank you.